I've watched people spend $20,000 moving to Portugal and leave within a year. And in almost every case, I could have told them before they boarded the plane that it probably wasn't going to work for them. In this video, I'm not going to tell you why you should move to Portugal. I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't. I'm going to give you 5 deal breakers that nobody who's made the move to Portugal really wants to talk about. 5 brutal reality checks about moving here and why for you it might be the wrong call. I'm not saying Portugal is a bad place. It isn't. I love it. It's great. It just means it might not be the right place for you, and why you might be one of the nearly 70% of Americans who, according to one study, move to Portugal with every intention of staying, but leave after only 3 years. Stick around because the last deal breaker is the one people underestimate the most. Deal breaker number 1, the bureaucracy will crush you. This is probably the biggest complaint I hear from people moving here. The slow, infuriating pace of government processes. People waiting for weeks or months for documents and approvals, getting the runaround with canceled appointments, calls that never get returned. All of that can cause you real stress. If you're a type A, time is money person, or you think instant gratification takes too long, Portugal will test you. For example, one of the first interactions someone moving to Portugal will have is making an appointment with AIMA, the National Immigration Authority. This is where you get your residency permit that lets you stay in the country for 3 years until you need to get it renewed. There's currently a huge backlog of applications at AIMA. Wait times are running 3 to 6 months, or up to a year or more in some cases, just for an appointment. And when the appointment finally comes, you might be asked for additional documents, or you filled out the wrong form, and then you pretty much have to start all over again. And even if your appointment goes through without a hitch, it still might be several months before the residency permit shows up in the mail. And it's not just with immigration. Many things take longer. I recently looked into exchanging my US driver's license for a Portuguese license and was told that it might take up to a year to get it approved. I've heard from several business people that getting work permits and authorizations is horrendously slow. Some people call it a patience tax. Now, this doesn't mean Portugal is broken. It just means it's different. The pace of government here moves a lot differently from what Americans are used to. When I complain about it to a native, a local person, they usually say, man, you should have been here 10 years ago, because I guess things are getting better, slowly. So what can you do about it? Nothing, except sit back, take a deep breath, and relax. Once you're through it, daily life is wonderful, but you have to get through it first. If you can honestly say to yourself, okay, I understand, this is the way it works, I'll accept it, you'll do fine. But if bureaucratic delays drive you up the wall and make your blood boil, that's something to take seriously before you move here. Deal breaker number 2, you're not willing to learn Portuguese. You've probably heard that most people in Portugal speak English, and in Lisbon, Porto, and the tourist areas, that's mostly true. You can get by with English at restaurants, shops, hotels, most of the time, but not everywhere. In the smaller towns especially, the pharmacist or the doctor may not speak English. Your landlord may only communicate in Portuguese. I hired a plumber recently to come to my apartment. He didn't speak a word of English, so telling him what I wanted fixed wasn't easy. The translation apps help, but only to a point. And if you're not digital savvy enough to use them, that's a whole other problem. I'll be honest, I'm still working on the language myself, but it's hard. I struggle with street signs or ingredients on food items. I miss browsing in a bookstore because everything's in Portuguese, of course. If you think you'll pick up the language automatically just by immersing yourself in Portugal life, think again. 4 years in, and I've still got a long way to go. And here's why it's important. Language is how you connect with people. If you can't exchange even basic words with your neighbor, the guy behind the counter at the supermarket, the people around you, you're going to feel isolated, alone, shut off, or you'll be stuck in the expat bubble. Your only friends will be other American immigrants, and you won't really be integrated into Portuguese life. Loneliness and isolation is one of the major reasons why Americans give up and go home. You don't need to be fluent in Portuguese before you move here, but you do need to be willing to try. Portuguese people will appreciate it, even if your accent is a little off, believe me. And if that's not you, if you just don't think you can handle that, Portugal is going to feel a lot lonelier than it looks on Instagram. So what do you think? Do you think you can learn a new language? Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Deal breaker number 3, you expect American level service. This one surprises people because it sounds almost trivial when you say it out loud, but here's what I mean. Last Valentine's Day, my wife and I went to a nice waterfront restaurant, had a great meal, and when it came time to pay the bill, we couldn't find a waiter, couldn't get their attention. It almost started an argument. This happens all the time. Waiters here don't hover like in America. They don't come back every few minutes and check on you or refill your glass. There's no, will there be anything else? Which is really just a euphemism for, please leave now. Here in Portugal, dining out is far more leisurely. There's no rush. You can have the table all night long if you want. Once you get your meal, you might never see the waiter again unless you flag one down for a refill or for the check. They're not being lazy. They're just giving you the space to enjoy your meal, enjoy your life. You see this everywhere. This is not an Amazon Prime same-day delivery country. In fact, there is no Amazon in Portugal, or Walmart, or Costco. The customer service culture is quite different. That customer is always right mentality isn't really part of the Portugal approach to things. And asking to speak to the manager doesn't usually work either. Returns are harder. Getting something resolved over the phone can sometimes be impossible. Appointments rarely happen on the scheduled time. Things just move at a different pace. Time is not a constant here. It's more of a variable. For a lot of people, and I'd put myself in this category, that slower pace here is exactly the point. They want off the American hamster wheel. For them, the slow pace is a feature, not a bug. And honestly, I've come to love it. But it took me a long time to stop being annoyed. If you think these small daily interactions will only frustrate you, if you can't slow down your internal clock to match the rhythm of a Portuguese cafe, you need to ask yourself, honestly, can I adapt? Or am I going to be constantly pulling my hair out? There's no wrong answer, but be honest with yourself before you book that flight. Deal breaker number 4. Your plan involves getting a local job and living on a local Portuguese salary. Now, I've mentioned this before on this channel, but it bears repeating. The median net salary in Portugal is around 1,200 euros a month, with many residents earning closer to the minimum wage, which was recently boosted to around 800 euros a month net. In Lisbon, a decent one-bedroom apartment in a safe neighborhood is running 1,200 to 1,500 euros a month, so do the math. Now, if you're a retired person bringing in a U.S. pension or a digital nomad earning in dollars or euros from clients in another country, or someone who's built up real savings, you'll be fine. You can retire comfortably here on just $32,000 a year. But if you're coming here expecting to land a local job that will cover your expenses and give you a comfortable life by American standards, unless you're in some specialized field like engineering, AI, or finance, you need to seriously rethink your plan before you make the move. And one more thing, because I think it's worth saying. A lot of American immigrants come here and talk very freely and openly about how affordable Portugal is. And it is, for them. But just be mindful of who's in the room when you're saying that. There's a lot of anxiety and pushback lately that Lisbon and Porto are becoming uncomfortable for locals because people like me have driven them out. It's not quite that simple. It's a lot more complicated than that. But the economics are real and the tensions are rising. The low cost of living looks very different from the other side of the coin, so keep that in mind. Deal breaker number 5, the distance from the people you love. This is the one people underestimate the most. Lisbon to New York is about 8 hours in the air. The time difference is 5 hours, so when it's 8 o'clock here in Carcavelos and you want to call your mom, it's 3 o'clock on the East Coast, which is workable. But if you're moving from somewhere else like California or the Midwest, the distance and time shift is far greater. And what if something happens back home? You're 8 hours or more and several $100s from being there. I thought about this a lot before I made the move. I decided I could handle it because my parents had died, I was divorced, my daughter at the time was living in San Francisco, 3,000 miles away from me, and I only saw her on holidays anyway. So it didn't seem like it was going to be a big change. But honestly, there are moments, the death of a friend, a relative, a milestone birthday, a holiday, where you feel that distance very directly. A video call on WhatsApp helps, but it doesn't replace being there. For many people, strong family connections are the reason they stay in the United States. I hear that all the time, and that's a completely valid reason. What I will say is this, the people who handle the distance have a plan and a budget for 2 or 3 trips home every year. They have an honest conversation with their family before they move about what this change means for the relationship. The people who struggle are the ones who assumed it would be easier than it turned out to be. The reality is, you're going to miss a lot of family holidays and events. And as you get older, those cherished moments that you miss become even more important. If you have a parent in declining health, young grandchildren you want to spend some time with, or a family network that genuinely sustains you, the distance is real. Don't romanticize your way past it. Okay, 5 deal breakers: the bureaucracy, the language barrier, needing American-level service, depending on a local salary, and the distance from the people you love. If you went through all 5 of those and none of them made you want to shut this video off, then you might be the right kind of person for this place, because the people who thrive here aren't the ones who came over after watching a few Instagram reels. They came because they did their homework. They knew what they were getting into, and they understood the trade-offs before they ever got on a plane. Another major concern is how much will it really cost to live here? And if you want to see what that looks like, I'll link a video where I break down exactly what I spend every month: rent, groceries, health insurance, everything, right here. So drop a comment. What are some other deal breakers keeping you away from making the move to Portugal? And please subscribe for more reality checks about living in Portugal. Until next time, até logo.